presented here for your consideration the notion that the ordinary people surrounding you every day, on the street, the bus, at the post office, or the trendy evening venue, are, in fact, far from ordinary. That these men, women, and others form their own splinter groups behind closed doors, and that these micro-societies engage in activities often more obscure than fiction. Welcome to the Sub-Subculture. Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Sub-Subculture Podcast. I am your host and back half of a pantomime horse, Andrew.
And in the blue corner, weighing in at 1,500 weights in a sack of grain, Joe!
That's the sound of a crowd going wild, but a very small and slightly unenthusiastic crowd.
The sound of a crowd going medium.
A crowd going medium. I'm going to use that in every meeting I hold from now on.
And the crowd goes medium.
So, welcome, Joe. You know what we're talking about today. You're pumped for it. I can see it in your little glowing face.
I'm so pumped. I love this one.
So this time, we are talking about combat robotics, commonly known as Robot Wars or BattleBots. Is there more to this than two Roombas with knives on the end going at it? Is there a sinister underbelly here? Joe is our man on the scene. He's going to tell me all about it.
How dare you? It's so much more than two Roombas with knives on them.
Sometimes there's three knives.
Sometimes the knives spin. Don't degrade this.
So, Robot Wars. Fighting robots.
Preconceptions, Andrew, if you'd like to go first.
Would I like to tell you about my preconceptions? Sure. So I guess the introduction for me, as for many people in the mainstream, to be aware of what this is or have some introduction to it would be the Robot Wars TV show in the UK, hosted by the ever-scouse Craig Charles at the time, although originally Jeremy Clarkson. That was back in the early 2000s, if I remember it correctly. So I'd seen it on TV, and it seemed to me to be grown men, sometimes under the auspices of doing it for their children, building elaborate remote-controlled death machines that had various weapons on them, trying to smash each other up.
Yeah, you've nailed it. That's what Robot Wars was about.
Good. Great. Glad we've covered it. Roll the credit music. We got it. But I guess there was probably a bit of extra flair given on a TV show or a TV medium for this, like a fire pit to shove each other into, or the super over professionally made ones that made sure that someone won or lost or got smashed up real good.
House robots?
Yep. Yeah, that's them. But essentially, there were some kind of miniature death machines that people built in their garages. And my assumption would be that whatever fun you can extract from that comes from absolutely ruining someone else's toy. like going into your siblings' room and kicking over their Lego. And this sort of satisfaction of seeing their faces when you realize that their shit's been completely pushed in. And something that they spent hours working on has been completely annihilated
in this mechanical blood sport.
Yeah, that's what I got. That's my thoughts on it. But we're talking about it as a subculture, right? So not just here's a TV show.
Yeah, TV show happened, and for a long time I was unaware that there was any kind of subculture around it. I thought it was a flash in the pan and it was gone, and I honestly didn't really think about it for 10 years. I mean, I loved it as a child, but around 2015, I started seeing clips on YouTube from the American show BattleBots, which had a run in the early 2000s and stopped at the same time Robot Wars did, more or less, but came back in 2015 with bigger, more powerful robots, and the clips were on YouTube, and it was awesome, and I just couldn't get enough of it. And I never thought I would be able to be part of it, because that's the heavyweights. They weigh about 125 kilos or 250 pounds, and they cost tens of thousands of dollars or pounds to build and do. And it's basically, whilst every kid dreamed of doing this when they saw them on TV, it's actually very, very difficult financially, if nothing else, to do this. So I never thought I would really be involved in this, despite having numerous radio-controlled hobbies, cars, planes, drones.
I guess that's probably an interesting thing to point out, that it's not completely disconnected from stuff that you were interested in already. Because I remember us, quite young actually, going to some outdoors place with a remote controlled car.
Yeah, I used to make various friends come with me whilst I played with my radio controlled car. to various places. Would I let them play with it? No. Fuck off.
I remember the burger van at the side of it.
The kebab van.
But yeah, the reason for calling you the man on the inside is, as you've alluded to there, you're kind of involved in this scene and you actively participate in robot fighting.
I do. It was, I can't remember how it started. I think I was talking to a colleague of mine. I think just by looking at him, I knew he'd be into BattleBots and Robot Wars.
You seem the type.
And D&D and Warhammer and Metal and Real Ale. And I've been right on all of those counts. When I first met him, I knew immediately before he said anything that he'd be into all of these things. And I was right. And so I spoke to him about the BattleBots series on YouTube. He mentioned that he was involved in the Antweight scene, which is very small versions of robots, which I had no idea existed. And within 3 weeks, I built one and was competing with it at the Antweight World Series, 60th iteration.
You had like the world's saddest Rocky montage, but in the space of a 3-week period, you went from hearing about it around the water cooler to in the World Championship.
Yes.
Wow. If that's not an inspiring story for the next generation of people who can't make anything better than remakes as movies, I don't know what is.
There's literally no entrance requirements other than, in terms of quality, other than you have to adhere to the rules, but it's not like they're screening people out. There's no qualifiers. You can just enter any old shit, which I did.
So if I glue a Furby to the top of a remote control car that I bought in Toys R Us, which hasn't existed now for about 15 years, you told me. But anyway, that's where I buy my stuff. If I glue those two things together, I can have a shot at this.
Yeah, if it's below the weight limit.
I mean, it's going to get absolutely ruined. I mean, people would like to see that.
People do this. People do robots which are just radio-controlled toys just entered, and they obviously get mulched. But that can be part of the fun. It's kind of Roboteer humor sometimes. Someone entered a computer mouse that they'd stuck wheels on.
They thought they were going to be the plucky underdog, but it was just fodder. They were like,
yeah.
This is like giving the Christians to the lions kind of thing.
There's a lot of joke entries.
Okay. Oh, there's a playful, humorous side to this.
Oh, definitely. People also like giving the robots long, unpronounceable names involving hyphens and other characters, which are very long, and the announcer playing along with the game always reads the robot name out in full, and in the middle of the fight someone's commentating, they always read the robot name out in full as well, and this is endlessly funny to the Roboteer mind.
I like that you had a qualifier to the Roboteer mind.
I find it quite irritating personally, and when I'm doing these events, if someone comes to me with a robot name that takes me longer than 2 seconds to pronounce or type, I just give it a new name.
Dave.
Save the robot, yeah.
So proper, I don't know, dictionary style definition.
Let's try it.
Give me one of these.
So here's a definition I got from Martin Peticho that says, combat robotics is a sport that involves builders using all aspects of STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and maths, or is it medicine? I think it's maths.
Mechanics?
To build
Probably
robots.
maths.
To build robots that are capable of combat with one another. The goal is simple. In a match that lasts less than 3 minutes, disable your opponent through a knockout or by judge's decision. Something worth mentioning is, although we call them robots, they're not actually robotic. There's no automation. There's no decision-making included. There are various disciplines that do that, but Robot Wars and BattleBots is just radio-controlled stuff, even though it's called robots. It's not really a robot.
Okay, good. So we don't need to be afraid of the artificial intelligence that you're putting into death matches suddenly turning on us.
I'm sure some stupid bastard is working right now on putting ChatGPT inside a deadly killing machine, and I'm sure it will turn out great.
Yeah, good work, Musk.
I wish he was that interesting. You know, I always thought the world would end with billionaires owning everything. I just didn't realize they'd be such losers into the bargain. They're so lame.
This is a whole separate thread. I don't want to get you...
Yeah, sorry, we're getting sidetracked there.
Pull a different one of your cords.
Zuckerberg is such a loser. Musk is such a loser.
Don't walk it back. Antweights, house robots, Craig Charles. What else can I throw you? Critter Crunch.
So heavyweights are the ones that make the best TV. They're the biggest, the most expensive, but there are other weight classes as well, which are a little more accessible. So I compete in Antweights. I run Antweight tournaments here in Oxford, and they're 150 grams. So they're very small. They fit in the palm of your hand. And then the next up is Beetleweights. Oh, and an Antweight probably costs maybe 100 quid for all the bits. Beetleweights are 1.5 kilos, and maybe 400 or 500 quid to make. And those are more like 20 centimeters across, maybe 30 centimeters, that kind of scale. And then there's featherweights, which are 13 kilos. And as you go up the weight classes, there's fewer and fewer people competing in them because the resources required to make them become, the weight's going up by a factor of 10. The cost is going up by a factor of 10 pretty much each time.
Okay. I did see there was a whole bunch of attempting to be coolly named weight classes because for my prep for this, I skimmed the wiki page and a few other sources, but I mean, we've got an untapped resource of your knowledge that I was hoping to lean heavily on here.
Tap this.
Said no roboteer ever. But I mean, the page is interesting in itself because there are these lengthy descriptions of type of propulsion or the weapons that you're allowed to have or the competitor shapes or certain styles that work better than others, flippers or pushers and stuff like this. Like it's more extensive than, I don't know, a chunk of military history, the robot combat wiki. I was like, there's some sweaty nerd that has a massive chub writing this, like imagining spinning axle discs in a certain direction, whether it's horizontally or vertically. I was like, okie dokie.
It's me. I have a half chub right now.
The more times we say robot.
It's fascinating. There's so many different kinds of weapon, kinds of armor. There's endless details that you can get into optimizing stuff if you like that kind of thing, which if you're autistic, you do.
Yeah, you think there's actually, I did find that a 2018 article on medium.com described it as very inclusive and welcoming, but also quickly claimed it was particularly popular with the Asperger's and autism afflicted communities. Is that the right way to say
afflicted?
I don't know.
Autism enthusiasts?
People what done have the autisms.
Got the tism. Yeah, I'd say actually you're more of an oddity if you aren't autistic in the robot scene. If you're socially normal, you kind of stand out like a sore thumb, which is funny.
If you're not neurodivergent, I think that might be the right way to say it. My eyes are gleaming with the hate comments that are coming.
We're gonna get cancelled.
Give it to me. This is what makes me stronger.
But yeah, lots of autistic people, lots of neurodivergent people, even a lot of trans people.
Oh yeah, Transformers, like they're miniature robots. They're actually humans.
A lot of Decepticons too. No, I don't know exactly why there seems to be an enrichment of trans people, but it's definitely there.
I've got a theory for you. So
Go
this
on.
is a why is the Robot Wars scene particularly well represented in the trans scene? Like this would have been a fairly male dominated hobby, I reckon.
Very.
Up to a certain point. And I think it's like that species of tree frog. Like if there's a large group of them, but they all happen to be the same gender, one of them, like one of the tree frogs, just becomes a female. Because it's necessary for the group. So you've got a microcosm of that here.
Someone had to do it.
Yeah.
It's an interesting theory, Andrew.
Yeah, that's a get cancelled theory right there.
Yeah, this has been a car crash of cancellation so far.
Okay, but it's a relatively new subculture, right? Because the technology to build little remote controlled roboty things hasn't been around that long. No?
It became accessible in the late 70s, these analog radio controlled systems, which were pretty janky and didn't really work. But it became much more reliable in the 80s and made radio controlled models viable, cars, aircraft, etc. But people weren't really doing this as combat robots until mid-90s, I would say. And it started with Lucasfilm, believe it or not, of all things. Did you come across that?
I found entries saying that the first recorded events took place in 1987 by the Denver Mad Scientist Society.
Oh, interesting.
Which is earlier than I would have thought. But that's, I guess a little organized thing for a small group of people. They called it the Critter Crunch, and they were, fighting it out with some.
Where was that?
Denver.
Not the great state of California for once.
No. The arm wrestlers and furries were off doing their own thing, and in Denver, Colorado, they were making robots.
Making nerd shit. So The origin of Robot Wars, the name, it was the brainchild of a guy called Mark Thorpe, who was a designer working for Lucas Toys division of Lucasfilm. In 1992, Thorpe had the initial idea for Robot Combat as a sport after unsuccessfully attempting to create a radio-controlled vacuum cleaner. In 1994, Mark created Robot Wars and held the first competition at the Fort Mason Center in San Francisco, so in the great state of California. And bizarrely enough, Robot Wars, which has become known as the British one, was actually an American creation.
It was that guy's idea for it. But first point, he was trying to make a Roomba with the limited technology at the time, and then he thought, fuck it, I'm not making a robot vacuum cleaner, I'm strapping knives to it.
Pretty much.
Initial hypothesis proven, thank you, putting that to bed. And I heard that if there was a dark side to some of this, it would be some of his origin stuff, in that he got totally bummed in the name of Robot Wars, and the commercial rights to it were sold off to this British TV company without even talking to him about it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. He began organising these competitions. Lucasfilm got edgy about one of their bits of intellectual property being used, I think, without their control or something like that. And he basically got kicked out of his own invention. As you say, the rights were bought by some British TV company, which then produced Robot Wars, released in 1998. And a year later, the Americans, I think maybe with the involvement of Mark Thorpe, but he might have got removed from the scene entirely, created BattleBots, which was picked up by Comedy Central and ran for a few years in the late 90s, possibly to the early 2000s.
We're basically bordering on the end of my research for this,
Right, okay.
which was the history part. But yeah, that was more or less what I found as well, that I think BattleBots may have spun off in like 2000 when that name was picked up in the US. It was originally a webcast and then got picked up by a TV show channel. But it's also had spin-offs in the Netherlands and Germany. So a couple of other places picked this up when it started rolling. And the fact that Robot Wars was actually successful on British TV would have had something to do with that as well.
That's kind of astonishing to me, because it's a niche hobby now, with niche people doing it. And the fact that it was the most watched show on BBC Two at some point in its run of 1998 to 2003, it had 6 million viewers at one episode at one time, which is about 10% of the UK's population. It was big.
That's a shocking statistic. Like, even I was aware of it, or I'd seen some of it, but I would never have thought like, oh, this is what 10% of the country is watching right now.
It's astonishing. And what blows me away even more is, obviously my girlfriend had heard of Robot Wars, and she was talking to a friend of hers that this new idiot that she's dating is into making robots and things like that. And this female friend of hers was like, oh my God, Robot Wars, I used to love that. And they voluntarily decided to watch an episode on YouTube just for the nostalgia. 2 women. That's how nostalgic it is.
You sound as shocked as Sean Connery in that Bond film where he finds the doctors of a woman.
A woman. Absolutely shocking.
But is that what it's like when a woman walks into one of your fights? Like one of the actual antweight ones? Do they all just stand still like they've seen a predator coming?
Interestingly, no. They tend to double down on religiously ignoring everything about everyone and focusing on robot talk. You would have no idea that this person was being thought of any different from anyone else.
Okay. That sounds wholesome. That's much better than if you were an attractive lady walking into a normal space in the public.
It is wholesome. It's the Venn diagram of roboteers, as they're known, and metalheads. There's a lot of overlap, especially in the robot direction, as in almost every roboteer likes metal. And metal has this sort of almost fanatical code of chivalry about not disrespecting women. Almost goes too far sometimes, in my opinion. But roboteering seems to have a shared ethos there.
Okay, interesting. Metal and chivalry. Hadn't thought about that connection.
The other connections there are a love of chaos, power, and violence, but without wanting to be cruel. And I think that's part of why the overlap's so strong.
I mean, it's kind of cruel to want to smash up someone else's toys, is it not?
Yeah, that is the paradox. But it's very hard to explain. So I win a fight against a robot and I've done some nasty damage. I'm pumped. My machine has performed its function. It's validated me as an engineer, and it's just cool seeing chunks blown off an opponent. But at the end of the fight, you go and shake hands, and there's this sort of simultaneous feeling of pride, and you want to look at their robot and see close up the damage that you've wrought. But at the same time, you also feel bad for them. And if your robot gets fucked up, you feel bad. It hurts emotionally. There's even feelings of shame that you're a shit engineer, or you're a crap driver, or, oh, I should have just done this better, or this always happens, or, even if none of that applies, no shame applies, you've still got to rebuild the thing. And it's hours and hours of hard work that's gone into designing and making this thing. And some geezers come along and blown it up, but you go over and you offer your condolences and ask if they need any spares and if they're going to be able to get ready for the next fight. So it's sort of, the aggression is contained in the 3 minutes of the fight, and afterwards there's this weird combination of emotions.
Okay. I mean, this is in the weight division that you're competing in. Like you said, the small ones that fit on the palm of your hand that don't weigh more than 150 grams, you said?
Correct.
So, I mean, the amount of damage you can do is limited to that. As you said, you can build one in a relatively short amount of time. So I guess it's not like they're completely disposable to you. You do want it to do well, and you've put work into it, right?
Yeah, they are far from disposable, even the small ones, because you still have to assemble them. The soldering's got to be bespoke. Even if all the components are only 10 quid each, you've still got to assemble them in a particular way. Some people have paint jobs, for instance. Mine has a paint job, and these things are hard to, you can't just slap 3 parts together like a Kinder toy and be ready to go again. Luckily, the individual components can be swapped out. So most fights end with a robot being disabled or shoved in a pit. And if there is damage, it's usually pretty minimal. But occasionally, a robot can be really fucked up, torn apart, and some of the important bits, including the battery, destroyed. And that can be quite difficult to repair it for the next fight.
Oh, so you're assuming that you would be able to get through, or you want to see if your robot can get through more than one fight in a day, because presumably you don't turn up there just to do one and be like, okay, got my shit pushed in, see you later.
Back in the car for a 5-hour drive up north. People travel quite long distances to come to events, so having just one fight would be a kick in the teeth. So yeah, people want to get as many fights in as they can, and part of the game and part of the discipline of it is building a robot that is, 1, robust, and 2, can be repaired.
So it's not like, as you said, all the components have to be painstakingly put together by yourself. And you've mentioned sort of soldering. I guess there's making sure everything lines up and fits in the kind of chassis that you built. It's not like the inside is you buy out of the box, generic robot inside, and then you can just put whatever shell around it. These are all completely custom made jobs.
Yes and no. The components that go into them are very common. So most robots are running one of 3 different drive motors, or running one of 2 different receiver speed controller combinations. So those components are off the shelf, but you still have to stick them together. They don't come assembled because the wiring's got to fit the chassis that you've built in a particular shape. Too much wiring and you can't fit it in, or it weighs too much, especially in amp weights, because weight's such a concern that, yeah, they aren't really drag and drop as a full assembled suite of electronics.
And have you thought about going up to bigger weight classes, or it's just the effort and stuff would be amplified and you don't have the commitment to put into those as well?
I would love to go into beetle weight's the next one up, which is 1.5 kilos. And I've actually started building my first one in the beetle weight size. I've run out of time. Annoyingly, I've got other things to do in my life, which occasionally take precedent over building robots. So I've had to give it a break for a little bit, but I will come back to it.
Yeah, damn right. You're shackled to the podcast microphone, don't you?
Yeah.
Don't you think you've got time for any of that robot shit?
Yeah. If you quit yapping soon enough, I might go and get a bit of CAD design done.
Lame.
But yeah, I'd like to move up into the next weight class. I've got the money to do it. Probably 400 or 500 quid going into one of these robots. I think the destruction is more, the theatre is more. It's probably just more spectacle, I would say, than amp weights. Amp weights are actually quite restrictive because how small they are. Beetle weights give you a little more design freedom, I think.
I mean, it's quite a jump going from 150 grams up to 1.5 kilos, which is almost the weight of a bag of flour. Not quite.
So the weapons on all robots, they are flippers to turn your opponent upside down. They can be saws, they can be hammers. Hammers tend to be very difficult to get to work in any meaningful way. They tend to just be for show. And spinning discs are very common. Spinning discs made of steel or titanium. And you can put a lot of energy into those, and they can be mounted vertically or horizontally or in the form of a drum. And they have the potential to be the most destructive out of all of these weapons, I would say, on the whole. And an ant-weight robot maybe has a 15, 20 gram weapon, which will give you a nasty nick on your finger if you stick your finger in it. You definitely wouldn't want to do that. And the beetle weight will take your finger off if you put your finger in that. Or your dick. I don't advise that.
Why would you straight away go to that into the is it sexual component?
I don't know. I've got to say it's about the last place I'd ever want to park my dick.
Yeah.
So there's not much danger of it.
Can we do this in the form of like a cheesy morning over the top drama interview sort of daytime TV role? So tell us, Joe, what initially attracted you to robots, and have you ever had to try to have sex with one?
Well, mate, I've always been sexually attracted to robots, and I just thought one day, I'm just going to whack my knob in here and see what happens. Fucking lost it, mate. Snapped it clean off. Spattered across the patio. The neighbours were fuming.
Darren's going to have to come round and clean that.
Joe, you dumb shit. You've all fucking messed it up again.
Good. That's definitely staying in. Definitely not cutting all of that shit.
And a heavyweight would just kill you. It could cut you clean in half. So safety becomes a real concern as the weight classes go up.
And those are the ones that you would see televised, the heavyweights that are going to really, if a person got too close, are going to have a really bad day.
Very bad time. Safety is very important in the culture and the running of these events.
Okay. I want to talk about that in a minute, but I also want to ask you, because we talked a bit about the robots that you're building, how small they are, they fit in the palm of your hand, and what goes inside of them. But you take part in and run these events. So maybe just describe how does a session go when all of you fine, upstanding people get together in an agreed meeting place? What does this look like? What's an arena look like to you? How does it all work?
So our events take place in the Tap Social Brewery, shout out to you, in Oxford, and they're excellent hosts. So they open the doors at 9. Usually there's roboteers there 15 minutes beforehand who have travelled maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours to get there with 2 giant toolboxes with them. And people set up in the pits, they get their robots ready, and by around 11 o'clock, we've done safety checks with every single robot that comes in. I log them in the system, and then the fighting begins. And the way I've set these events up, I wanted them to be beginner friendly as well as still competitive. So we have a round robin kind of tournament to begin with, where there's 5 guaranteed fights per robot. You're allowed to enter 2 robots. So no matter what happens, you can have 5 fights. Even if you lose every single one, you can still have 5. So that people that have traveled 3 hours still get some stick time, which is good. And then we see who's done the best. There's points assigned based on whether they won by knockout or won by judges' decision. And then there's a knockout tournament at the end, which crowns an overall winner. And throughout the day, people are having pizzas or beers or Cokes and that kind of stuff and chatting away. And there's someone commentating the fights as they go on.
Okay, so is there one little central arena that everyone watches at once, or do you have multiple set up for the round robin stages?
I would quite like to have multiple arenas set up, but it would be extremely logistically demanding to do. So we just have the one at the moment. And it's about 1.2 meters square. It's made of these 2 halves with a wooden base and polycarbonate walls, which are maybe 3 millimeters thick, which is enough to keep even the biggest ant-weight weapons safely contained inside it. And that's an arena. So
it's quite a small arena for small robots. And these polycarb sides that come up on it, they're transparent so people can see through it and get a good look at the action, is it?
Exactly, yeah.
Anything as dramatic as like what you would see on the TV? Have you got any pits or anything like that, or it's just 2 robots go in, 1 comes out?
Pretty much that. The pits do exist, but they're just people with soldering irons on pub tables.
I meant pit as in something you push your opponent into.
Oh, I see.
Like a trap.
Yes, so the arena has two of its 4 walls have sections cut out where you can be pushed off the edge into a pit. So there isn't a central pit in this one. There's pits on the edge.
So it's kind of a letterbox kind of thing. You would push your opponent through the letterbox to shove them out of the arena.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And they drop down. So when they drop down, it's pretty clear that they're out because they can't get back in. And other arenas have more complicated arena hazards, just like the TV show. There's a big flipper that one Antweight arena has. If a robot drives onto it, the flipper fires and it throws them across the arena. And I think that's about it for Antweight arena obstacles. We don't have a flame pit. The fire, health and safety and acrid fumes is too complicated to manage.
It's not just Dave sitting under the table with a blowtorch and just every now and then.
It probably would be. There is actually a robot guy called Dave. He's very involved in the scene.
I'm sure, no doubt about it. In any large gathering of men, you'll be able to shout Dave and someone will answer. I looked up some Antweight stuff on YouTube just to get an idea of what you are spending your free time on and how worried I should be. And this was from one of the amateur clubs in Melbourne, Australia, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And their arena sounded similar to what you've described, but I guess it's kind of elevated at not quite eye level, but at table level.
Yeah.
Because they had two little hinged trapdoors that opened halfway through their match as pits. So that, like, I guess when it got to a minute and a half or whatever the time limit is, these two would open on opposite sides of the arena. And then that was what everyone went for. They wanted to shove each other down these holes.
Yeah, that sounds about right. You were not particularly impressed with Antweights, as I recall.
I sent you some disparaging WhatsApp messages.
What the fuck is this?
Through a haze of beer and whiskey. Yeah, no, it's just I didn't find it particularly compelling. Like, even the driving of these things looked kind of chaotic and spazzy. Is that allowed? You allowed to say spazzy?
No.
I'm saying it. Looked pretty spazzy to me.
Like the Robotics aren't really in control of it anyway.
Or like it's just kind of pathetic and it would just kind of lurch from one side to the other and it's gone that way. Oh, I'm pushing him and he's pushing me, but we have exactly the same power of motor, so nothing's happening.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate, I would say. It's I think a good thing to spectate at the brewery if you happen to be getting a beer, you've got a vague interest in engineering and violence, or maybe some nostalgia left over for Robot Wars. You pop over for 20 minutes, have a look at some robots smashing each other and think, and then go about your day. It's not the best spectator sports at Antweight scale for sure. And it's a lot more interesting if you're competing in it yourself or you're in the tournament, you've got skin in the game.
Mm. And so this is open to the public. It's not like it's not only your neckbeards that are allowed to come and take part.
We encourage people to come along from the public and spectate it. We want to grow the sport, grow the scene.
So if I just happen to be staggering through the brewery, 6 tankards deep, I'm allowed to come and watch?
Yeah, for sure. We don't even charge. The events aren't for making money. In fact, there's a quite big ethos I've noticed about not doing it for money. So Dave is the owner of the arena and he owns a Beetleweight arena as well. And he goes around to almost every event in the country that he can get to and supplies the arenas for them. And he does it at cost. I keep telling him, you should charge for your time, Dave. But he feels icky about it and he does it for the love of the scene, which is amazing, but it's a huge commitment, which is quite draining on him. You
find people like that in hobbies and stuff that is what they are interested in doing, and money side of it just holds no interest. They're like, no, it's not why I'm here for the fun.
Mm.
Bob was like that at Scouts, right? Like he was pumping loads of his own money into our own Scout troop and doing everything for it.
Exactly. He was awesome. It's people that are really, everyone that's gone to the effort of building a robot is extremely passionate about it. It's not the sort of thing that happens by accident. And you can't just buy one off the shelf. Well, you can kind of buy one off the shelf if you've done a little bit of research. There are some people in the scene trying to make a little bit of money selling kits, but it's generally frowned upon, I would say. A whole big part of it is designing your own robot, making your own robot. What's the point in competing with something someone else has made?
Maybe it's all about the glory for you. You're just in it for the competition. You could get a rogue roboteer for hire who's going to build your bot for you and you're just going to use it to crush your opponents.
Yeah, that makes sense on paper, but in reality,
that's not how it works.
It's not how it works, no. It's also not as simple as building the best robot. A huge amount of it is driving. There's been many, many times where an awesome robot has been undone by its driver and driven into the pit itself.
I can just see that relationship being the father and son team that have built it. The father's painstakingly done it. It's like, this is the best thing ever. Now, do me proud, son, and hands the controller over to his 7-year-old. He's got no idea what he's doing.
Literally every time, yeah. Although, to be fair, sometimes 7-year-olds can be real demons at driving.
And they've got the springy thumbs of youth and hand-eye coordination.
From all that GoldenEye that they've been playing on the N64.
Wow.
Or maybe the GameCube, I don't know.
My references were dated, but you've overshot the lot.
What are they playing now? PlayStation 3?
17. It's all Fortnite, mate. All Fortnite all the time.
That's something that's quite cool about this is there's a big age range from maybe as young as 5 to maybe 75 and everything in between. And it's something you can do with your kids or with your parents, depending on your perspective, as a kind of family venture, which is pretty cool, I think. And you can kind of compete on an even footing-ish.
Because you're all spazzes.
Especially at ant weight level, because money is not a determining factor in it, really.
So you mentioned briefly some of the weapons, and like I said, the wiki is just full of them, but what do you tend to see in the entry-level weight classes for robots? They're not all going to have circular saw blades coming off the front that are capable of shaving a man's head from his neck stump.
It's mostly flippers and spinners.
Flippers and spinners.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're trying to use some kind of leverage device that will turn your opponent robot over?
Correct. A servo, usually, which is basically just a motor that is attached to a transmitter.
And then you can shove them around as well, I guess. So with these tiny ones, there's a limit to what you can do, I guess.
Well, if you spend all of your weight budget on having big sticky tires and powerful motors and don't have any other kind of weapon, then you'll be the best at shoving, which is a totally viable tactic. And honestly, a lot of the time, if you just have a well-driven robot that doesn't drive itself into the pit, you'll probably win 40% of your matches.
What's your robot style? What have you got in the arsenal?
I only run one at a time at the moment. I'd like to build another one, but the one I'm running at the moment is a vertical spinner, and it has a nasty hooked bit of steel that spins in the vertical plane and kind of delivers uppercuts to the opponent.
What is that? What kind of shape is it, though, what we're looking at here?
Listeners, you're going to love this.
Oh, this is great for audio medium. He's wandered off. I've opened a nasty door here.
Into the robot cave.
Let me show you my robot.
You made the mistake of asking. This bit of steel rotates like this, and it's got this big angry tooth on the front that goes spinning upwards, and you drive it into opponents, and they get smashed in it.
Okay, so what I'm looking at for our not psychic fucking viewers, listeners, is a squarish plastic cube with 4 wheels sticking out of it and a sort of upward planed triangle bit that's got looks almost like a winch on the front of it, but it's got this spinning blade that Joe was trying to describe, like almost a one-bladed saw blade with some smaller bits sticking off of it.
Correct.
So a cubish thing with a spinny blade on the front of it.
You've nailed it.
Wow, that's gonna translate so well. The people listening are gonna think, it feels like I'm in the room.
Amazing, yeah.
A pocket calculator with a mini saw attached to the front of it.
As we've seen, it's some pretty niche engineering interests that go into this. It takes a particular kind of mindset to want to build one of these things, figure out all the different parts you've got to get, design it, put it all together. And as you can see, ant weights don't make the best TV from the videos you've watched. Beetle weights are a bit better. All this kind of adds up. I alluded to this earlier, but we didn't really get a chance to talk about it. How was Robot Wars a success, a mainstream success, given how bloody niche this is?
On TV? I mean, like or your BattleBots in the US, but the UK TV show.
The UK TV show. How did that manage to get into the mainstream?
It was taking an idea and then just throwing theatrics at it, I guess. Because what you're describing is the stripped down version of what we all saw on TV. And I guess it's what people are imagining when they turn up to one of these tournaments. So they're thinking of a big pit full of spikes and flames and some badass robot that looks like a medieval knight with a saw on its arm or something like that that's going to be coming to chop them into pieces. All of that was done for a massive spectacle, right? The arenas were over the top. There was fans, there was flames.
It was visually very striking. And the teams that entered, I don't know if the TV show encouraged this, they probably did, but they'd quite often have a theme. The robot might have a theme and the people running the robot might dress accordingly. There's one team, I think their robot was called Plunderbird 1 or something like that. And they were all dressed in like military camo, and they kind of pretended to be hard ex-military men and never react to anything. It was kind of iconic. And there's numerous teams like that. There was the team that created the famous robot Nemesis, which was famous for having fur, which inevitably got set on fire every single match. That was part of the whole robot shtick. And these guys were Irish. Well, Nemesis and Dietor, I think, were their robots. And they had these fabric jackets in the same, and hats in the same fabric as the robot was covered in.
They're like, oh, this robot's good, but how do we make it more flammable?
Basically, if they'd won the fight and they hadn't been set on fire, they'd go and seek out the flame pit just to make sure.
Just for a dramatic entrance exit.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it was visually entertaining. I guess partly as well because BBC Two picked it up and they put it in a prime slot. Back in the day, you had 5 channels to choose from. We didn't have
had to watch it.
You basically had to watch it.
It was popular because there was nothing else on.
Genuinely, I think that played a part. People loved it, but they would never these days be interested in it because there's 5,000 different channels that you can cater to your smallest micro interest. Why would you waste time on something that you're not already interested in? Back then, you kind of turned on the TV and picked your favorite of the 5 things available. So I think that helped force it into people's brains in a way it wouldn't have done otherwise.
It did seem like a quick skim of the history that was published online did say that it sort of had a drop off from about 2003, 2004 or something.
Yeah.
Like there was like a hiatus almost, but then a couple of them got picked up and came back again, like 2015, 2017 kind of time. New channels picked them up. Robot Wars came back, BattleBots came back.
Yeah.
It's now, like, even 2021, there's now this series on Discovery Plus.
Yep, BattleBots is still going. Although the Robot Wars revival stopped after 3 seasons. But that 10 years was kind of the dark ages for the TV world, and it was just grassroots stuff like what I'm doing that kept the scene going.
I would have thought that this would be bigger in like China and Japan, but maybe it's just not covered in the source that I read.
Yeah, it definitely does exist out there. They did have a TV show called King of Bots, I think, run in China.
King of Bots, Fighting My Bot, This is Fighting Robots, and Clash Bots.
Yeah, there you go.
Held and broadcast in China.
But yeah, I mean, if I say the name Razer to you, does that mean anything?
Those flip phones that were really thin in the early 2000s.
The Motorola Razer V3. I always wanted one of them. They were cool. But Razer is probably the most iconic robot of all time, and that's most.
I think it's Bumblebee. Yeah.
Something else that made the series really quite interesting, one of my favorite parts was they always had a female presenter as well as other presenters. The female presenter would go into the pits and she'd talk to the Roboteers about their robots, about the fights coming up. It had this kind of engineering angle as well. And the presenters were really well informed. They knew what was going on. They knew what the concerns were. And they could ask really good questions of these Roboteers. And these are like sophisticated, attractive, articulate, confident women. And a lot of the time you could see the Roboteers just like freezing, like deer in headlights.
Just visibly sweating.
Yeah, literally, yeah. Thinking, this is the most attractive woman that's ever spoken to me, and she knows about my robot. This is simultaneously terrifying and awesome.
You're probably veering into the question of, is it sexual?
I can answer with absolute certainty it is not. There's no part of this which is sexual for anyone. Roboteers are still sexual creatures. They still have those desires, but I think a lot of people are so operating in their own social world where the normal social environment doesn't make any sense. And in the robot scene, the robot makes sense. Everything's focused on the robot, that they have these other non-engineered desires like wanting to shag, but they're almost entirely separate from this world of engineering that they understand. I feel like they don't really know how to access them in a social way.
They like things in neat little boxes, and sexuality and robots don't go into the same box, and therefore they don't cross over.
It's probably some of that as well. But I think human sexuality doesn't have a rule book that you can read, that you can then build a meta-beating design to to optimize for.
Yeah. So any of you that are buying self-help, love fixing books out there, Joe just told you there's no manual for it. You're not going to find it. Put it down.
Yeah, I suppose there is
They're
a
scamming
manual.
you.
It's a little more complicated though.
I think I would want to try and force those two worlds to collide. I'd build one and cover it in a load of dildos as armor. And then there'd be a spring-loaded one on the front as well that kind of like at an upward angle, like rah, 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 like this face.
Penetron.
Yeah. I think it would it's a flipper, but not the way you're thinking.
Interesting.
I mean, dildos are built to last. There's going to be some pretty good armor, I reckon. Nothing's getting through those.
There's one moment. So we do these side events as well in the middle of our main events, which are usually quite silly, and they kind of break the tension a bit.
The tension, the extreme tension.
It is, man. If you're competing for the championship, and you get all hopped up on adrenaline when you go into fight, especially for the first couple. I know it sounds stupid, but it feels like you're going into a real fight. I know that's dumb, and like your hands are twitching on the controller, your heart rate's going. It's pretty intense because it's the culmination of months of work sometimes to get to that point, and you really want it to perform. You don't want to get your shit pushed in a couple of moves and have to rebuild the thing. So it gets intense. You're really risking something.
Anyway, sorry, I interrupt you. Side events.
Side events, that's right. So this one was BattleBots, where the robots are deliberately shitly made. Like they might be made out of like takeaway packaging and have spoons or chopsticks for weapons. They're deliberately crap. And there was one which had a great big tongue, and there was another one which was an orc with bagpipes and a sporran, and the sporran moved up and down like a flipper, and they ended up fighting each other, and the tongue was getting stuck in the sporran.
Yeah.
To great hilarity, of course.
Of course, all these dads covering their young sons and daughters' eyes. Don't look, not until you're 18.
We do try to be family friendly, but it doesn't always work.
Oh, so you're saying that bot sexual or the penetrator is not going to be allowed in the competition?
Yeah. Luckily, no one's been dumb enough to try and enter something like that, but I would make them rename it. Or if it was literally covered in penises, I would just say no.
Oh, coming soon to an event near you. This guy.
I know, I'm such a killjoy. Something I quite like in this organizer role is I don't really pretend that it's anything other than a dictatorship. So if people want to argue stuff, which they generally don't, but if there's something they don't like, ultimately my response is, well, too bad. Event organizers say is final. So I don't care that your robot technically adheres to the rules, and there is no rule about not having dicks on it. If you bring me a dick-covered robot, I'm just going to say no.
It's going to only be a dick. It's just going to be a dildo with wheels attached to it. In fact, it's not even going to have wheels. It's just going to have a remote control. It's going to vibrate its way around the arena, bashing little Timmy's truck-shaped one.
Strange fantasies you've got here, Andrew.
It's going to give him all sorts of kinks in his later life. His little truck-shaped robot being pushed in by Penetron.
That's very disturbing.
I can't wait for you to think of that next time you're running one of these events. Just watching the shadows for Penetron. He's around.
So basically, in conclusion, I don't think there is a sexual aspect to this at all. Even the wonderful thrill of violence, I don't think there's any sexual element to it.
I don't know. The guy that wrote that wiki entries, I think he had sexual feelings for robots, the depth of description he was going into.
Really?
Lovingly rendering them in my mind with his words.
How gifted.
So if there's not a sexual element and a sexual side to this subculture, what about a darker side, do you think? Is there, if I had to try and guess, and this is what I wrote down in our outline, just making it up and saying, does any of this stick? Like, is there, you said people aren't in it for the money, but is there any kind of illegal gambling that could go on? That might be something that's not quite right. Do you think there's any sort of tempers or this obsession with your robot having been destroyed that's going to lead to some revenge being enacted?
I wish there was illegal betting going on. That would be sick. But no, there isn't. Robots don't, at least at the small scales, don't tend to have a lot of cash. And if they do, it's going into the robot. No one's betting on these. Maybe I should start that. Maybe that could be a new element. And revenge fantasies and emotional outbursts. Emotional outbursts aren't uncommon, but they're usually frustration with oneself. A lot of people, I think some people misunderstand this about autistic people. Autistic people might struggle with social norms and social protocol, but they still have the full range of emotions that anyone else does. And a lot of the time they tend to wear them on their sleeves. So if their robot loses, it's a moment of frustration. They can bang on the arena or something like that, but it's never directed at other people because it's part of the game. It's the very first premise of this is you're in there to fight another robot. So someone's got to lose. And I don't think anyone loses sight of that. Sometimes young kids get upset when their robot gets sometimes not even destroyed, just knocked out. My very first robot fight, I made a 5-year-old cry.
And you've been addicted ever since. It made you feel like a big man. Kept coming back.
That sweet rush. Nothing's ever beaten it. I've been chasing the dragon ever since.
I guess I was thinking of one of your sources there, that CSI episode where someone does get chopped up by a Robot Wars robot, right? Anything as dramatic as that? Well, not in your weight class, but in the community in general, do you think there's any kind of risk of this?
Of deliberately being used as a weapon?
Yeah, I guess so.
No, definitely not. It would be too impractical. And I think everyone understands that if we ever have a serious accident, then whilst I say that we take health and safety very seriously, which we do, we'd have to take it to another level if people started losing fingers, limbs, or their lives. In fact, there was an accident the closest anyone's come to getting killed was in India. They had a robot fight going on and a spinner disconnected. This is probably a 10-kilo lump of steel that's spinning at 200 miles an hour, disconnected and fired out of the arena through the protective sheeting and clipped some guy in the head and knocked him out clean. Dirt nap for him. Somehow he didn't die. He should have been dead. But
yeah,
that's as close as anyone's come. But it was also Indian levels of health and safety, and the arena looked like it was made out of cheese. So it didn't even have a roof. So it was insanely dangerous, and no event in the UK or the US would ever be so lax.
You would think so, especially when it comes to heavyweights, but I think that would be the only thing that I've found, and that was mostly related to the televised ones, that the only dark side really was the lack of proper health and safety when they were filming, or people getting involved with these massive dangerous bits of equipment. And there were actually numerous reports of people being injured on the set of Robot Wars because the health and safety wasn't up to code. There is a very, very small newspaper cutting that you can still find around where a BBC producer had his foot cut by a blade when he was inspecting. I think it was when he was lifting a robot out of the pit. It was still on. They would have a bunch of malfunctions because where they were filming was quite near a taxi rank, and the radio frequencies that they operated on were the same. There were, the competitors were elevated on platforms, but they were just on cherry pickers. So these things were like swaying about as they're in this box trying to control a robot. People getting motion sick.
It's stuff like this that created the safety culture in the first place.
But the best example of the poor health and safety, and something that could have, ultimately led to a different cultural landscape in the UK, is that Jeremy Clarkson almost died from filming the first season of it, apparently. So they didn't have...
Did he really, or did Jeremy Clarkson nearly do it? Die?
This story didn't even come from him. This was from other sources. But they didn't have any kind of screening up around the audience and the presenters. They were just kind of low. They were down in a sort of lowered pit, and there wasn't any of the big perspex sides that you see on it later on. So filming season one of the house robots, one of the really elaborate over-the-top ones, had a circular saw blade on it. One dead metal,
yeah.
Yeah. It said this circular saw blade, which flew off during a match, no side, went straight past the side of his head, like by inches, and embedded itself in a concrete wall.
Wow. Yeah.
So close. We almost got him.
I actually like Jeremy Clarkson. I think that would have been a loss of a UK national treasure.
Just going to let that hang in the air while people scream their obscenities at us. A polarizing figure.
If it wasn't cancelled before, it will be now. We will be now. Yeah, if there is a dark side regarding health and safety, I think it's probably a tendency to be hush about near misses, because we all know that it will become a shitstorm if we have to take the health and safety to the next level. It will really impede the operation of all of this. We try and be safe as we can, but it's still a lot of personal responsibility in, is your robot really off? And in the pits, make sure that you keep the locking bar on the weapon, even when you're testing it or only test it in the arena box and things like that. And if there are near misses, I'm pretty sure people will not want to talk about it much, because one, it reflects poorly on them as having had poor practices, and two, it could bring down all kinds of legal problems, insurance problems, venues not wanting us, and that kind of thing. If a story ever broke into the mainstream about someone losing a hand to an uncontrolled robot fight in a brewery, it would make a great newspaper article, but it'd be a right pain in the ass.
Underground robot deathmatch kills toddler.
Yeah, exactly.
Full story on page 7.
God forbid.
After all the tits.
So other dark sides, I think Robotiers put a lot of themselves into the robots they produce. They anthropomorphize them, and they kind of identify with the robot as a kind of extension of their identity sometimes. And for some people, there's a bit of identity fusion, and they can feel like a loss of the robot is a reflection on their own identity. And there are also organizers. I have a friend in the US called Wallace who has arenas, and he tries to go to every single event that he can. I think because BattleBots out there is his primary hobby, it's his primary social network, and he's a big deal in it. And his identity is inexorably mixed up in this, and he doesn't know who he is without robots. And if there's events happening without him, then he feels sort of existentially threatened, I think. This is a lot of theory here, that he is going to become irrelevant. And so he's tired from doing these events, but he also can't say no to them, because his identity is part of being the guy that is at all of the events.
But that's just taking any hobby, activity, sport to an obsessive level. I guess you would find that in a lot of places.
That's true.
Probably not unique to...
It's not unique to robots, no.
But interesting to know that it's part of the community for those that are heavily involved, potentially.
It can be, definitely. And the only other dark side I'd say is there's potential financial ruin, especially in the bigger classes, if you're really obsessed. But most people, I think there's a kind of selection criteria. You've got to be above a certain level of intelligence to be able to build one of these things. And not that always reflects into good financial decision making, but it's probably at least a loose correlation that I don't think many people are ruining themselves. Maybe back in the day when TV show Robot Wars fame was on offer, they might have overstretched their budgets and had furious wives at home because they'd spent it all on a new piece of metal. But
I mean, these are hobbyist tinkerers that want to make something fun, but ultimately, you can only budget for X amount of spinning saw blades and and wheels and motors. And
one other potential dark side, this is not really a dark side, but I hate fan fiction. And there's actually Robot Wars fan fiction out there if you want to find it.
Oh my God.
I know. People are imagining
erotic fan fiction.
Luckily, I don't think so. It's more find it. Fights that never happened between robots, maybe between Robot Wars robots and BattleBots robots, and who would win and this kind of stuff. And
that is the saddest shit I've ever heard.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree, man. It's just nostalgia taken to the next level. So many years without Robot Wars, and it's become this kind of mythical reference point for the entire rest of the hobby, and people just want more of it, and it isn't there, so they write it themselves, and Jesus Christ.
Self-insert fan fiction about your robot, the plucky underdog, taking on Sir Kills-A-Lot or whatever they're fucking called.
Yeah. It's bleak.
It's not bleak, it sounds very isolationist. Like, surely someone could reach out and help that person.
It's got to be something better in your life than this. Robot Wars fanfic. Yeah, I don't know. There's a bit of like TV drama as well. Sometimes decisions were made that made good TV, which maybe didn't respect the integrity of a competition as much. For the Roboteers, it was always about the competition and rules and integrity. And obviously, a TV show has different purposes in mind about entertainment. So there's...
Oh yeah, it was rife with that. There was some girl who was doing a whole kind of vlog on darker side of things, and one of them that she mentioned was Robot Wars. And I didn't even consider most of it for my pencil scribblings, like accusations of judge bias in matches and decisions made because it was better TV, or that they thought that robot looked cooler, so it would go through to the next round or something like that.
Yeah,
it's like, it's on TV. It's a TV show. Sorry, but you have to accept even reality TV is not real.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. It's disappointing, but it's also kind of obvious that that's how it's going to go. It would be a shame if there's just flagrant, a robot gets mulched and they say, nah, that one won because it has the plucky underdog person that we like.
It showed the most technical competencies before it got turned into Lego.
Yeah. There's always going to be some of that in any kind of TV. There are some particular archetypes of Roboteers that you see coming up.
Yeah, I want to know about the community.
So in no particular order, I've got 6 different archetypes here that are quite common. You see them at every event. So number 1, the engineer. Hallmarks: CAD, CNC, water jets, precision tolerances, titanium armor that looks aerospace grade. Motivation.
The fuck does any of that mean?
Serious engineer shit. Professional engineer stuff. They want to make a perfect robot, and the robots they make are often amazing engineered, amazing looking works of art almost, and they're precision perfect machines. There's number 2, the creative one. This person favors hand making, doesn't do computer design, and it's viewed as a creative outlet, and their motivation is kind of storytelling and artistry and personification of this robot. They want to delight as much as win, I think. Number 3, the innovator / mad scientist. So these guys are most interested in making a design that no one's done before, seeing if it can work. They're not really interested in being competitive. They just want to see whether this goofy thing can actually even function, like a giant sphere as a robot, or something that's got a crazy walking mechanism that will blow apart in a second if it's ever touched. But so their goal isn't to win the competition. It's just to see if something can be made.
Okay.
Archetype 4, the flaming autist. These guys are
well represented in your group by any chance?
Well represented, often really autistic, like visibly autistic. Often got headphones on, doesn't like eye contact, talks in a strange way. These guys also make great robots generally, but they stand out a little bit even within the nerd environment.
And it definitely is a nerd environment. Like all of these things, they're subtypes of nerds that come to these things.
These guys are all nerds, for sure. So number 5, the eternal amateur. Janky robots, persistent flaws that never get fixed, like wheels coming off every single fight. It's like, dude, I love that you keep turning up and you're into this, but fucking glue your wheels on. Jesus Christ, I don't want to see your robot lose in the same way again. Come on, man, learn something. And it just seems like every event, no matter what they do, they're always just putting in a wet turd into the arena. And it's like, if you're into this, good for you, man. But Jesus, I can do that. And number 6, this is probably the funniest one, I think, is the rule bender. The guy that reads the rules to the letter of the rule, not the spirit, and then creates something that doesn't violate the rules, but kind of breaks the game. And their highest goal in life is to create something so game-breaking that a new rule has to be implemented just because of them. And that's kind of a game within the game. Again, they don't care about winning. They care about breaking the system for some reason.
I think they want to win by cheating. That's what I reckon.
That's interesting. Cheating doesn't seem to come up, which is interesting.
Not with your crowd. Give them a rule and they'll follow it until they're off the cliff.
Pretty much.
So which category do you think you fall into? Where do you see yourself in those archetypes?
Good question. Definitely not a rule bender, seeing as I'm the one that's making the rules for the events. That would not go down well. I tend to follow the spirit of things rather than the letter. Trying to unlearn that. It's been holding me back. I would like to think I'm an engineer type. I don't create robots which are perfectly engineered works of perfection because I'm not a engineer by training. Although I think I probably should have been if I could have my time again.
I don't know. I think you might be the hobbyist, the one with the storyteller. You've got dragons and shit painted on you one you just showed me.
It's themed like a crocodile.
Yeah. And what was the one you had before that?
Parmesan, the hard cheese.
Yeah, it was a wedge like a cheese. They've all got a little identity. They've got a little story.
That's true. They have a creative element. That's true. They want to delight as much as win. I'm definitely interested in making competitive robots that win. That's what I want to do. I'm not too fussed about making a fan favorite that loses all the time. If I can do both, that would be best. I think a good theme helps, but I'm definitely, it's a robot to win before it's a robot to delight. I really want it to be feared. I want people to see they've been drawn against it and they're like, oh shit.
You know what would get that? The penetrator.
Oh god, not this guy. The robot's a piece of shit, but the guy's an asshole.
They'll be like, nope, sorry, I fold. I can't have my 8-year-old son staring at that for 3 minutes.
Well, they'd be right. They'd be right.
Okay, let's round this out. We can't really answer the question of would you be into this because you're already balls deep in it.
Way too deep in this.
Buried to the hilt in this.
Yeah.
Would I be into it, you ask? Thanks for asking.
Sorry.
No.
Sorry. I was reading the primers. What about you, Andrew? I get the sense I know the answer to this, but would you ever be into this?
While I appreciate the effort that you've gone to try and make it exciting, I think I would have to come along and be bored in person to have the remotest chance of being into it. It just doesn't appeal. I don't have any urge to build one of these. I don't have the ability to build one of them, nor to drive them.
Poofter, eh?
Nor to even really look at them.
Yeah.
No, it's just doesn't, like, to the chagrin of my father, I'm sure, but I was never really interested in model trains or remote control cars or anything along those lines. Anything masculine. If I turn up to one of your events, I'll probably spontaneously change into a dress because I'll be I'll be that tree frog.
Oh shit!
It's me.
The hormones in the air have changed me.
God damn it!
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd like to know more about what drives people into these things, because I think you appreciate a bit of violence probably as much as the next man, right?
It's only as long as it's inflicted upon the next man. I got nothing against robots; they never hurt me. If you want to set up a second arena, do it for the guys that are frustrated at having lost, and they can
duke it out
with this psycho for a few rounds.
So you'd be more interested in people fighting people?
No, I probably wouldn't even want that. It looks a bit painful.
It does. Do you find it interesting to watch that?
Nope. Don't watch MMA. Don't watch boxing. None of that.
Interesting. I find it weirdly compelling. I don't technically approve of it, but there's something kind of interesting about two grown men giving each other brain damage.
So this is the next best thing for you, huh?
Well, this is violence without any of the moral weight. It's just robots.
Man, when the robot revolution comes, you're gonna be first up against the wall for these fuckers.
I'll be killed by my own creation.
I'll be there like, I was on your side, guys. All I did was stick my dick in. No, I didn't. Nope.
Guys, I didn't care in the slightest.
Yeah. I was apathetic to you one way or the other.
That makes me a good guy, right?
I don't really have any closing thoughts. You've pretty well covered this. I like the takeaway that this 2018 article on Medium came off with, that it was quite a good way to inspire kids into STEM, so that engineering, science, technology aspects of building these robots, understanding how they work, getting better at controlling them, putting them together, and wanting to then scale up and build more and build better. It seems like a wholesome community from what you've described, quite inclusive.
It's very
and we've
inclusive.
not really found anything to say that there's a dark side or a downside or anything seedy at all going on.
There isn't. It's very wholesome. Definitely odd. It's made up of oddballs, but if you're an oddball yourself, you'll fit right in.
I've got a nice quote, a beautiful quote from an intelligent man. It says, "It's a home for misfits, trans people, autists. Its intensity is rewarded and social abnormality actually becomes normal."
Very much.
So who wrote that?
Sounds like he is handsome and quite well endowed, whoever he was.
Yep. 50% of that's true, because it was you.
Ooh, which 50? That's interesting. Listeners, you decide.
Good. Have we covered this one enough? Do you think we've been gracefully covered your topic of preference here?
I think so. There's always more I could add about Craig Charles being a great presenter for it. In fact, I always like to have a couple of quotes in these things. So this one's from Craig Charles. I'll try and do him justice. "On the first day, I was in the dressing room, looking in the mirror, looking down at the arena. They were pulling the robots into the arena on an invisible twine because nothing was working. And I was thinking, oh my God, what have I done with my career? Do you know, within the blink of an eye, it was the most watched show on BBC Two." Presenter Craig Charles on the success of Robot Wars.
So he was talking about his acting career in Red Dwarf had been on BBC that he'd starred in. And then he'd come along and done this, taking over from Clarkson. There was all this drama, all this fire and stuff, but they got there, and this was when they were having the radio frequency problems with all the robots being on the same one as the local taxi ranks and just switching off and dying and stuff. And he was like, the fuck have I signed up for?
Exactly. Nothing was working. The robots weren't moving. They were dragging them into the arena with bits of string to make it look like they were coming in under their own steam. And I thought, what fucking shit show have I walked into? This is going to tank my career. But actually, it was a big hit. And I think Craig Charles is pretty well loved. His enthusiasm for it was clear. And he was an excellent presenter. He did a great job. And the commentator was Jonathan Pierce from the original Robot Wars and the reboot in 2016. And he's an excellent commentator, straight from football. The presenters, Philippa Forrester back in the day, and Angela Scanlon and Dara O'Brien in the new series. They were all excellent. They were enthusiastic, professional, knew their stuff. Yeah, I think it was a really well-produced TV show. It's a shame the second coming of it only really appealed to nostalgia, and it didn't have the mainstream appeal the original used to. Probably on account of the massive choice, which is a shame because the robots are literally 10 times more powerful. In that 10-year dark age, battery technology improved, motor technology improved, and they're way more spectacular now than they were in the 90s. Looking back at footage from the 90s now, it's like, Jesus Christ, this is boring. Everything's so slow. But yeah.
So you take that, bottle that impression of you watching it from the 90s now, and that's how I feel watching any of it.
Well, you suck, so.
Good point. Well made. Yeah.
Now, in all seriousness, fair enough. You're entitled to your opinion. It's the sort of thing that either intrinsically appeals to you or it doesn't. I had a party here a while ago and invited some people from my gym, and one of them saw the robot on my shelf and picked it up and was like immediately drawn into it. And he had no interest in roboteering or radio controlled stuff before, but as soon as he saw it, he got it and was hooked. And I think he's in the process of building one himself now. It's the kind of thing that it'll either grab you immediately or it won't. You're kind of driven to do it because it's awesome, not because it makes any rational sense. I think it's an awesome hobby. If you're into it, then you'll know, and plenty of supporters out there to help you get into it. It's a very welcoming crowd. Not for everyone's tastes, but overall, a pretty wholesome refuge for eccentrics and oddballs.
Speaking of not for everyone's tastes and supporting, why don't you come and support us? Come and join us on social media nonsense, where we now lurk like the penetrator at the back of a perfectly legitimate Robot Wars event.
Like the penetrator in the bin of my event,
yeah.
Along with the person that brought it.
You can find us on X at Sub-Subcult Instagram at Sub-Subculture Podcast, and our Reddit page r/Sub-Subculture Podcast. So leave us comments. What did you think about the episode? Your suggestions for what we should manhandle in future. What topics you want us to look into? Maybe we'll cover them. Maybe we'll give you a little shout out if we pick up your idea and run with it. And you can check out all of our previous episodes and our special side quests as well on your favorite place for podcasts, whether that's Apple, Amazon Music, Overcast, Spotify, YouTube, and so on. This has been the Sub-Subculture Podcast. Thank you for your time, your patience, and your love of robots.
I echo those sentiments.